I'm Mike Feuer. I'm currently the Los Angeles City Attorney. I've been a city council member. I've been a state legislator as the majority leader for policy in the assembly. I also used to run a nonprofit public interest law firm before I entered politics called VetCetic. That means House of Justice, helping 50,000 of the most vulnerable people in our community who could never afford a lawyer, but they were losing their house or their health care and they turned to us. So I come to this race for mayor from a career of trying to stand up for people and fight for their rights and be sure our quality of life is improved and we're a safer and more unified community. And that's why I'm running for mayor. You know, we're at a critical time in our city's history. I can't recall a moment when we were confronting so many crises at the same time. Homelessness, affordable housing, the pandemic, public safety. These are not problems. These need to be urgently addressed because they've escalated into emergencies. And you're going to see me as the mayor who on the first day is, because of my experience as an executive here in Los Angeles, can hit the ground running and shake up the status quo and take the decisive action we need. That's why I'm running. Talk about anti-Asian hate first. When the pandemic was first underway back almost 2 years ago, as you know, I was the first elected official here in Los Angeles to convene a town hall virtually focused on anti-Asian hate and how we combat it. Standing up for people in a community where I know that many people feel a sense of shame about conceding that they were victimized in the first place and might not be sure that officials would take them seriously and embrace them. I want to send the strong message that we want you to report if you are victimized. We want you, even if you think it wasn't a crime, but just a hate incident, if we can intervene at an early stage when there's an incident that isn't yet a prosecutable offense, we can make the community safer. And I want to send a strong message when I did this to perpetrators, as well as embracing the community of people who've been victimized, to perpetrators that there can be no place in our city for these acts of hate. Notwithstanding that our former president referred to the COVID pandemic as the Kung flu or Asian flu, we needed to combat that here. And as mayor, in addition to assuring we have resources to intervene when there have been incidents of hate, I want to be the mayor who stands up before such incidents occur and acts to prevent them by bringing our community together and by de-escalating division and hatred among people and focusing on what unifies us. It's a very important objective of mine, but I have strong views about the ways that we can help and create a community where there's no anti-Asian hate. I've been at so many rallies where we've spoken together and lifted each other up. On public safety generally, I'm the first candidate to have proposed that we increase the police force, in my case to 10,000. I want a well-trained and diverse police force where we de-escalate violent confrontation, where we sever from police obligations, interventions, and nonviolent mental health incidents and give those to crisis response teams instead. I want to assure that we embed officers in neighborhoods where there's often a lack of trust with police for 5-year stints to earn that trust. I want civilian ambassadors in police stations to be that first point of contact to make them user-friendly for people entering the station for the first time. And police can't do this alone, so I want to invest in violence prevention intervention programs in communities. I want to clean up neighborhoods. Cleaning up a neighborhood makes them safer. I proposed 1 million more hours of neighborhood cleanup in the course of this campaign that I pledged to put in place. I want neighborhood solutions teams. So if that park or that store in a community is a source of problems, that we bring all the departments involved together to intervene and help resolve that problem. I want to include job training and after school programming as well. Safety for me is a comprehensive approach that hits on each of these cylinders, none of which is sufficient, but each of which is necessary. On my first day as mayor, I'll declare a state of emergency. It gives the mayor additional executive power, and it also sends a message to the community that this requires all of us in this emergency moment. I wrote a piece 4 years ago for the LA Times, and the piece said, if we had a disaster like an earthquake, there'd be a FEMA field general here in charge of recovery. That we have the equivalent of that disaster, it's homelessness, and no one is in charge. It was true then, it's true now, It needs to change. My first day, I appoint a top deputy who consolidates all the authority of the mayor's office, reporting directly to me on this issue. All my opponents have borrowed from these two ideas, but there's following and there's leading. I'm a leader now, I'll be a leader as mayor. I want to change our street engagement strategies. We should be saying to people experiencing homelessness, it is not safe for you here. 1,600 people died on our streets last year, and our public spaces need to be safe for everybody. So we have a place for you to go, but there'll be a choice date after which you cannot stay here to assure we balance that equation. And I want to emphasize the creation of permanent supportive housing using a private equity model that will build it faster and cheaper. In addition, I was the pioneer among elected officials 5 years ago in promoting the idea of converting motels into homeless and affordable housing. I'm going to be emphasizing that as mayor, it's cheaper and faster. I want to assure that the city and the county are working much more closely together on mental health and substance abuse. The doctor in charge of mental health for the county says we have an open air asylum on our streets, and we have 1,300 vacant substance use beds right now. Not on my watch. We're going to work together to change those things, and prevention is a key, because often we talk about what happens when people are already homeless, but we are needing to prevent people from falling into homelessness in the first place. I'm going to have a robust emergency fund to keep people from falling into homelessness. And as a lawyer, I've been prominent in creating a movement toward a right to counsel here in California. I've written key laws in Sacramento and promoted those ideas here. Those in combination are going to be important to keep people housed. So those are the steps I will take. As you can tell, they are very different from the steps being taken now. I'm going to create on my first day a deputy mayor who is focused exclusively on small business. During the pandemic, I held a series of virtual town halls for small businesses. And I asked, what do you need the most from City Hall? And each time someone said, you're the first person to ask us. Well, that's going to change as my administration as mayor. I'm going to have a small business deputy mayor who's a one-stop source of information for small businesses. I kept hearing there's a lack of clarity and consistency in our rules. When I was a city council member, I said to small businesses in my district, don't hire a lobbyist. My job is to help you go make your way through the bureaucracy in City Hall and to cut the red tape. These are indicative of the approach I'm going to take as mayor. In addition, access to capital is a big issue. When I was a state legislator in the teeth of the Great Recession, I was put in charge as a co-chair of the effort across California to get more access to capital to small businesses. I know that that's often an issue here. And during the pandemic, I heard something else. Besides the need for clear and consistent rules, I heard businesses say, I'd like to learn from peers who are going through what I'm going through. And I'm going to create a virtual means by which businesses can communicate directly with each other to learn best practices from each other. So these are among the steps I'm going to take. And then I've to say the most important thing for last, I'm going to phase out the gross receipts tax. Often people think of the Asian American community in our city as one monolith, but we know better, right? And in this campaign, I've been leading as a candidate in the way that you're alluding to, as I will do as mayor. I'm the only candidate going to all 101 neighborhoods of Los Angeles, which is an extraordinary undertaking, actually. So you'll find me in, I was in a Thai Wat in North Hollywood. I've been to Chinatown. I'm going to be in Little Tokyo and in Koreatown. There are all these different enclaves representing different groups in our community. The Korean American community has a center in Koreatown, but a major presence in Porter Ranch in that area. The Thai community has a presence in Thai Town, and as I mentioned, in North Hollywood and elsewhere. I could keep going. Each of the communities in our city requires a specialized focus. And when I was in Chinatown recently, speaking to community members about the Chinese American community needs in Chinatown, I heard a different set of objectives than I've heard when I was in Koreatown, for example. There's some commonalities, but some differences. So my deputy mayors will reflect that, and my staff will reflect that. Your question is, well, I have staff that recognizes the diversity in the Asian American communities of our city and aggressively reaches out to identify community-based needs and then follows up by assuring that city services through general managers are there to respond to those needs. That's the way I govern. It's the way I always have governed. A bunch of different things. I want people to have an urban experience, and I want them to have an outdoor recreational experience. So I say, you know, go to Union Station, and within a short span of time, you can walk to Chinatown and to Little Tokyo and Olvera Street and get a taste of each of these communities in Los Angeles. I say you should go hiking in Fryman Canyon or take a bike ride along the Marvin Browdy Bike Trail on the beach. I say to folks, it's really important for you to take one of our major streets from one side of town to the other as you see the evolution of one different kind of community after another. Take Olympic Boulevard, for example, and you'll see different communities one after another and get a sense of the diversity of our city. I say to folks, it's really important for you not just to think of us as a community that broadly stated has nearby a bunch of theme parks like Disneyland or Universal City. They can get it anywhere. What you get here is a level of authentic community experience. And I urge people to do what I've just described and take walks, and don't just drive through places, but walk around and interact with people. And I also say, try that restaurant that is the mom and pop where one family member is running the front of the restaurant and someone else is cooking in the back. Those are always the ones that I find the most enjoyable. Those are some of the things I say.